The MMA fortune teller.
The teller, the teller, the teller, the teller, the teller, the teller.
You guys, the Teller checking in for the inaugural episode of the Teller Talks. As you guys see, we got the new logo, and it's going to be a new type of show that I'm going to be delivering to you guys. It's not going to be your simple prediction video, fight card breakdown type of video. It's going to be a lot more than that. As I've been telling you guys for quite some time, I'm going to have a lot of special guests on the show. A lot of fighters will be coming on here. And we're going to be talking all things MMA, mostly in regards to betting, but it's going to be a lot more than that too, man. We'll be getting the real spicy type of fighter interviews, the street fights, what these fighters, how they are in their personal life, a lot of that type of stuff. As I've been saying to you guys for quite some time, it's not going to be just your typical pencil neck type of MMA type of show and with those boring interviews. I know there's a dime a dozen of those types of guys out here on YouTube, and that's not what the Teller's about. I'm going to be giving you guys those spicy fighter interviews. I'm going to be giving you that real shit. As Nate Diaz once said, I'm going to be giving you that real stuff. So that's what the Teller's about. The inaugural episode of the Teller Talks. And today's lineup, you see a couple main topics that we're going to be talking about here. We're going to be talking about some things in regards to UFC 249. As you guys see, I'm rocking the Eddie Alvarez haircut. By the way, I had to do my COVID-19 haircut. Can't go to the hairstylist, to the barber. So I had to, result back to my high school type of haircut. The two on top with the skin fade on the side. Actually did it myself. My grandpa was a barber in World War II in the military, and had a barber shop in New York. So I think it's just it runs in the genes. I'm a natural with the clippers. So it'll do for the meantime, Once this thing all passes us, I'll be back to growing my hair out. But, what's up with you guys and your guys' hair? Comment below, what's going on. It's tough, right? You can't get a haircut. I'm sure some of you guys have some wild hairstyles out there. So, and, what else? Yeah, man. Also, I want to let you guys know this is very important. In regards to the Teller Talks, I'm going to be doing a live episode once a week, and it's going to be an interactive type of video. So it's going to be, the type of video where I want you guys hopping on with me. I'm going to have a link right in the video as it's live on YouTube. You guys just click that link. You'll come to the back of the studio room where I'll be able to click on one of you guys, bring you in the live video. I want to interact with you guys. Any questions you guys have about the fight cards that are going to be coming up. Remember, right now, over the last month or so, things haven't been normal in regards to everything really, but, especially in regards to the fights. Once we get back into the gist of things, and we got fights coming up all the time, every week. Of course, we're going to have 3 fight cards taking place within 8 days. So things are going to get back to normal, and we're going to have a lot of things to talk about. You guys are going to have a lot of questions in regards to these fight cards. I'm going to be here, to answer those questions. We're going to interact. It's going to be entertaining. So, make sure you guys mark this on your calendar. Saturday will be the first episode that we do. That will be a live stream on YouTube where I want you guys hopping in the video, talking, asking questions. We'll make it a good time. And so, make sure you put that on your calendar. Let's see what else we got here. I think that's about it, man. I think we're going to get into the first topic, man, right here. I want to talk about Dominick Cruz. Obviously, we already broke down the fight the other day, but, there's a lot more that I could talk about in regards to this fight. Dominick Cruz taking on Henry Cejudo. The reason why I say forgot about Cruz is, I've been getting a lot of comments, a lot of messages. People are a little bit surprised that I'm taking Dominick Cruz to win this fight. And again, I am taking Dominick Cruz to win this fight. I know he's coming in, almost a 2-to-1 underdog, right around that plus 185 right now. A little bit of money's came in on him recently. Dominick Cruz, man, this guy is a legend in the game. 22-2. You take a look at the 2 losses that he had. Both of his losses were against top of the line fighters, Cody Garbrandt, and then Uriah Faber. When he was a young buck, at the time, he lost to Uriah Faber. He only had 9 professional fights, and Uriah Faber was a little bit more of a seasoned fighter. For those of you guys that don't remember that fight, man, go back and watch that fight. Uriah Faber caught him in a nasty guillotine, a very entertaining fight, and of course that led to the entire drama and beef that those two guys had throughout their career. Of course, they had a trilogy, and Dominick Cruz did win, the last 2 of the 3 matches. So keep that in mind too. This guy, one of his losses, he redeemed that loss. And then the Cody Garbrandt fight, that was his most recent fight, man. Cody was on the tear at that time. He really was. I know Cody's kind of had some setbacks as of recently. But Cody's a very skilled fighter. And, going into that fight, Dominick Cruz had some problems, with injuries, his knees and whatnot. And, also keep in mind, going into this fight with Henry Cejudo, it's another long layoff for Dominick Cruz, but this is nothing that he's not familiar with. He's been through this time and time again. As I said, with the knee injuries, he's had long layoffs. He's a very mentally tough type of fighter, and in my opinion, a fighter that has some of the best fighter IQ I've ever seen in the game. So I really don't think it's going to affect him having at this point in time, almost a 4-year layoff. But you know what? I really don't see it affecting him. I know he's going to be in great shape. As I talked about, he's been training with Jeremy Stephens. They've been getting to it. And Dominick Cruz is just a world-class fighter. And, in regards to Henry Cejudo, he's going to have a pretty good size advantage. He's going to be the bigger fighter. I think his striking is a lot better than Henry Cejudo's, in my opinion. Maybe not a lot better, but I think it's better. I give him the edge. At least I'll say that. Dominick Cruz is so tricky with the footwork. And, this fight most likely is going to take place in the feet. Think about it. It's probably going to take place in the feet. Dominick Cruz has underrated wrestling. His base was wrestling. Before he got into MMA, he was initially a wrestler. Remember that. And he's going to be a little bit bigger. And this is an MMA fight. This isn't a typical wrestling match. So, this is... The wrestling exchanges will be in regards to MMA wrestling exchanges, where it's going to be hard to get in on Dominick Cruz. He has good footwork, and again, he'll be the bigger fighter. So don't expect Henry Cejudo just to go out there and slam him down and have control, top time and all that, looking good for the judges. I don't see it going down like that. In fact, if Henry Cejudo is going to win this fight, I really expect him to have to use his striking and his power and really bring the fight to Cruz and just start, really bully him in there. And I don't really see that happening. I think the fight's very close, but the value's definitely on Dominick Cruz. And, I'm picking Dominick Cruz. So, for all you guys that are messaging me and asking questions, I think that you guys are forgetting who Dominick Cruz is. Dominick Cruz, man, a guy that I've been watching way back in the WEC days, a guy that's been around forever, a future Hall of Famer, just definitely a future Hall of Famer, man. And in some people's mind, quite possibly the best bantamweight to ever do it. It's some people like to argue that opinion. So, I just wanted to touch upon that. Up next, I do want to talk a little bit more about the Tony Ferguson Justin Gaethje bout. Of course, we talked about that, but I want to go more in depth into these fights. I've been thinking about this fight a lot. I've been killing a lot of tape. Putting a lot of time into this fight. And I kind of made a decision what I see transpiring on fight night. I think that if Tony Ferguson wins this fight, and the reason why I'm going to go into this, I think this will give you guys a better idea of who you guys want to lean with in this fight, because I really see it going one of two ways, depending who's going to win this fight. If Tony Ferguson's going to win this fight, he has to avoid getting knocked out in the first or second rounds. I really, truly believe that. If you watch a lot of Tony Ferguson's fights, he gets clipped early. He really does. Lando Venata dropped him. Anthony Pettis dropped him. His striking defense is not the best. It's really not the best. And if he gets tagged by Justin Gaethje early, I think Justin Gaethje can put him to sleep. You take a look at that Anthony Pettis fight when he dropped him. Tony Ferguson was able to scramble. He's like a mad, wild Wolverine, and he's able to survive. He has great survival instincts in there. But if Justin Gaethje connects with that right shot, you guys know just as well as I do, anyone could be put to sleep. If you get hit on the chin in the right location, you're going to get slept. And then just think about the wars that Tony Ferguson's been in too. That chin eventually is going to catch up with you. So, if you're leaning Tony, you got to really feel confident that he's going to survive that first round, that second round. Now, if you're taking Justin Gaethje, if you better feel confident that he gets that knockout, because if he doesn't get that knockout early, good luck winning the 5-round fight against Tony Ferguson. His cardio, it just gets better as the fight transpires. Justin Gaethje, as much as some people, they think that he's kind of a cardio machine because he has that tenacious attitude in there. He's really not, though. If you take a look at, particular fights, I mean, the Eddie Alvarez fight, he starts to kind of fade in those late rounds. I know he's fixed up some things in his game, supposedly, at least he says. But I think when it goes to the 4th and 5th round, I think he's going to have a big problem with Tony Ferguson. Tony Ferguson is going to be working the legs, throwing those inside, those body teep kicks and working all types of weird angles. And he's gonna really wear on Justin Gaethje. And I see him winning this fight if it goes 5 rounds. So again, when you're making your mind up on who you want in that fight, maybe take a step back and think, how do you see this fight going? I think that will more so give you the answer of the fighter you think is going to win the fight. All right, so then we got the Goliath versus Goliath. I think you guys know who I'm talking about here. I mean, who would I be talking about? Goliath versus Goliath. Of course, you know who it is. Francis Ngannou versus Rozenstruik, 2 absolute beasts. 2 guys that carry just as much power as anybody that's ever stepped inside the octagon, ever. Not just at the moment. The line, we talked about the line, man. There's a lot of people like Francis Ngannou. I get it. The guy is just such a stud, man. A lot of people feel comfortable having money behind him. But think about fight night, man. When fight night happens, it might be a whole different story because these guys are going to have to throw down. And if somebody gets clipped, either one of them, they could be easily be put to sleep. Jairzinho Rozenstruik is just a stud. But again, I do see Francis Ngannou winning this fight. I think he's going to be more fluid with his striking. And I just overall, I see him winning this fight. If I see somebody getting knocked out, I more so see Jairzinho getting knocked out. And I didn't really like the way Jairzinho looked in that Overeem fight. Besides the last minute of the fight where he got that knockout, his volume didn't look that good. He looked a little bit hesitant at times. Francis Ngannou is really not hesitant when he's in there, man. He likes to bring that pressure. Besides the Derek Lewis fight, of course, But I think that Derek Lewis fight is just was a random type of fight on his resume because if you look at all the rest of his fights, he doesn't fight like that. So I wouldn't look too much into that. Francis Ngannou, man, just an absolute savage. He's been in just knocking dudes out left and right. And, yeah, man, I definitely got to go with Francis Ngannou. But you guys, do not be surprised if Jairzinho catches Francis with the counter strike. Jairzinho Rozenstruik, in my opinion, is a very much a counter strike type of fighter. So Francis, I see him coming forward. It'll look better on the judges' scorecards. If Jairzinho doesn't get that knockout, I don't see him winning the fight. Mark my words on that. I don't see Jairzinho winning a decision here at all. He has to get a knockout. And it could happen, but I don't know. I just don't know if I see it happening. Francis Ngannou, man, this guy has been just babying grown men, man. Just babying top-notch UFC fighters, possibly, future Hall of Famers, like Junior Dos Santos and guys like that. So that's a fight, man. I know you guys are all ready for it, man. You guys want to be buckled in, ready to go when that fight happens. So definitely excited for that. Now, something I want to talk about, man. I don't know if you guys have been paying attention to the fights that have been announced as of recently. By the day, we've been having a lot of fights being announced for the 3 events that will be happening within 8 days. We've already touched upon UFC 249, but let's talk about the event that's going to be following, just after UFC 249 on May 13th. Of course, taking place in Jacksonville. All 3 of these events will be taking place in Jacksonville. And it looks like in the main event, we're going to have Anthony Smith taking on Glover Teixeira. That's a solid fight. We got OSP versus Ben Rothwell, Andre Arlovsky versus Felipe Lins, Drew Dober versus Alexander Hernandez. That is a fight that you might want to mark down on the calendar, man. That's going to be an exciting fight. Really excited for that. And both of these guys recently are coming off similar situations. Both of these guys were scheduled to fight different opponents, and now they match these 2 guys up together. And I think it's an awesome matchup. Drew Dober is definitely the more polished striker. Alexander Hernandez probably has better grappling. I do believe he has better grappling. I think that's his avenue to win the fight. And I'm on Drew Dober here. I'll give you guys a little quick tip, man. I'm on Drew Dober over Alexander Hernandez. I think Drew Dober has been on fire. You saw him in his last fight. He was an underdog going into that fight against the Afghani fighter who a lot of people were high on. A lot of people like his name's not ringing a bell to me right now. I'm trying to remember who that was. He looks just like Calvin Gastelum. And but he was a big underdog in that fight, and he stepped up to the plate, man. He really stepped up to the plate and got the knockout. Drew Dober is one of the best Muay Thai practitioners that we've seen in the octagon, man. He was a Muay Thai champion. His striking's nasty, so don't sleep on his striking. And Alexander Hernandez is a little bit bulky with the striking, so we'll see what he's able to do in that fight. And comment below, man, who was that Afghani fighter? I'm not pulling it up right now. You guys know who I'm talking about. I'm very well versed with the guy. It's just slipping my mind. You know how it is, man. There's so many fights to talk about. But other than that, on that fight card, we got Ray Borg versus Ricky Simone. Two high-paced fighters. That's going to be an excellent fight. Cheesecake Sarah Moras and Sajara Eubanks. That fight is back on. Carl Robertson versus Marvin Vettori. It's a solid fight for Vettori, man. I'm curious what his whole situation is. I thought he was in Italy, so I guess he's flying back. I guess flights, they're open up, man. And he's coming back over here. And then Michael Johnson has a new opponent now in Thiago Moises. It's a good matchup for Michael Johnson. Hopefully he gets back in the win column. Something in regards to Michael Johnson, too. I'm going to be reaching out to him, man, and his brother. I recently found some fight footage. It is fight footage technically, but some footage of a UFC event that I was at in Orlando where Michael Johnson's brother, who was sitting right next to me, was brawling out with the Diaz fans. I've been telling you guys I was looking for that footage. I did finally find that footage, and I'm going to be posting it, and I might even get his brother to hop on a live chat. Man, he's a wild dude. I've been talking with him on Instagram. Michael Johnson and his brother and his family, man, there's some fighters, bro. So maybe I'll get Michael Johnson's brother on, and he'll give you his little side of what went down, and you guys can see the video because it was a nasty fight. And Michael Johnson's brother was not scared in the least bit, man. 1 versus like 5, 6, and he dove right into it. So keep an eye on that. I got to see if they're into that and all, if they want to come on and whatnot. And then the other fight card that will be taking place will be the Alistair Overeem versus Walt Harris fight card, the final of the 3. And some fights that have been announced so far. Kevin Holland versus Anthony Hernandez. Kevin Holland's a guy that you guys might see on the show. Talk to him a lot of times. Really cool dude, a wild dude. And I wish nothing but the best for him. I think he's going to make a name for himself in the game. Good jiu-jitsu, man. Really unorthodox type of striking. Also, we got Edson Barbosa versus Dan Ige. That's a good fight right there. Eric Anders versus Christoph Jocko. Dontel Mays versus Rodrigo Nascimento, the undefeated Brazilian prospect. And Dontel Mays, you guys know him, man, the guy from Dana White's Contender Series, the big boy, knockout power. That's an entertaining fight. Courtney Casey versus Romero Barella. Giga Chikazi versus Mike Davis. And then Darren Elkins versus Nate Landwehr. So, that card is not probably out of the 3, maybe a little bit less exciting. But you guys know just as well as me, you're going to be excited when those fights are on. I don't care if it's the 3rd event within 8 days. We've been so deprived of fights. I know you guys will be just as excited as I am, even on the 3rd event. So, really good stuff. And then, one thing I want to talk about. Different this time around. We got 2 rematches taking place on the card for UFC 249. The one that I mostly want to talk about, the one I'm more excited for, is Donald Cowboy Cerrone versus Anthony Pettis. That's a fight. I think that both of those guys are at different points in their career, and I'm excited for that fight. The other rematch is Vincent Luque versus Nico Price. We could touch upon that a little bit as well, but I want to talk about Donald Cowboy Cerrone versus Anthony Pettis. The first time they fought, Anthony Pettis just outclassed Cerrone, hit him with that body shot, man, and stopped Cerrone. And that's really when Cerrone was like doing his thing, man. When he was just running through people, stringing off, his nasty resume that he had, and and even after he lost that fight, he started to string off a lot of victories, man. But yeah, he lost in the first round. That was one of his typical first round losses. When Cowboy loses, he loses a lot in the first round. I seen it firsthand. I saw him lose to RDA live in Orlando. Speaking of that fight card where I saw Michael Johnson brawl it out, I believe that was the same card. It might have not been, but it was in Orlando. And, that's Cowboy's thing. And if Cowboy's going to lose this fight again, I see him getting caught with something early. But if he doesn't get knocked out by Pettis, I really feel that Pettis has really taken a step back in his career. I mean, you saw him in his last fight against Diego Ferreira, who was an excellent fighter, but still, I mean, you saw him he's been getting bullied up, man. Nate Diaz bullied him up. If Cowboy shows up, which it's never a guarantee, but if he shows up, I could see that fight going down similarly to, how Donald Cowboy Cerrone looked against Alexander Hernandez, where he really bullied him up. If he's on like that, it's going to be a tough night for Anthony Pettis. Anthony Pettis is going to be getting butchered up, and Anthony Pettis has trouble finishing fights sometimes in those situations. I mean, you saw him against Tony Ferguson. Not to say that Cowboy at this point in the game is a Tony Ferguson, but I could see Cerrone bloodying Pettis up, bullying him up, and pulling this fight off. So, a lot of people have been messaging me too, because I have Cowboy winning that fight. It's a close fight, but people have been messaging me about that fight, saying, "Oh, what are you thinking taking Cowboy?" Let's not forget, Anthony Pettis is not the same fighter either. Anthony Pettis is not someone that's reliable either. This fight's a very close fight. The line should probably be a little bit more close. You know what I mean? One thing that's a little bit questionable. I don't know if you guys saw the interview with Cowboy Cerrone about how he lost that fight to McGregor. He was saying that he was checked out 3 days before the fight. I don't like hearing stuff like that. And Cowboy seems to be a real mental case in there. We all know that. I'm not really sure why that is, because this guy does all types of wild stuff. You know what I mean? He's always out there doing crazy things. You would think that this guy's mental psyche is just, indestructible, but it's obviously not. I just don't see him. I don't see him getting intimidated by Pettis. I don't even care that he lost the first time around. I think he's not. He's going to be in there. He's going to get in there and he's going to be ready to go against Anthony Pettis. I think he knows that Anthony Pettis has really taken some steps back in his game, and I think he knows it's time to get a victory here, man. He really needs to get a victory, and if he doesn't, Cowboy's career is going to be getting close to being in jeopardy as far as retirement, because I don't know how much longer Dana White's going to allow him to step in there and take L's and get finished and whatnot. Coming off 3 losses, didn't make it past the second round in all 3 of those fights, so keep that in mind. Really excited for that fight, man. And, what else we got? The Jacare Souza versus Uriah Hall, that's a fight that I'm very, very much anticipating. I think that's a great stylistic matchup. The Greg Hardy matchup, man, versus Jorgen De Castro. Very excited for that fight as well. And, yeah, man. So, we're getting close. We're getting close to May 9th. We're almost a week away from UFC 249. As I said, I'll be putting out a lot more videos like this. And this is just the inaugural video, so don't look too much into it. Just a simple little, a little breakdown, a little, talking about UFC 249 and whatnot. But I'm going to have a lot of fighters on the show. Like I said, man, keep an eye out. A lot of exciting interviews are going to be taking place, man. Those interviews that you guys really want to see, at least if you're like me, because I've been wanting to see interviews, how I'm going to give them for a long time, and I can't find anybody doing it. I'm tired of the Ariel Helwanis, doing interviews, all these guys from these other shows. I forget half their names, but you guys know who I'm talking about. Some of them I like, man. I'm not hating on all of them. Some of those guys I do like. But a lot of them, man, they're boring. I do like to hear about the training camps and whatnot. I like to get insight for sure. Of course, somebody like the Teller over here, that's making bets and making wagers. Of course, I like to get insight into, what's going on with the training camps. But as far as just out of a sheer entertainment standpoint, I want those real conversations with these guys, man. And I'm sure not all the fighters are going to be into it. It's not going to be for every UFC fighter. There's a lot of guys that I see out there that seem to be a little bit, like they got to stick up their butt, and those aren't going to be the types of guys that are probably going to want to hop on my show. But I know there's a lot of fighters out there that are, real men's men that are wild dudes, man, that have some crazy stories, that have been around the block. And not to promote or to make like it's a positive thing, man, but like people that have been through street fights and whatnot. I know a lot of you guys like to hear about those types of stories, and I'm not promoting, these guys to be doing that type of stuff now, but somebody like me, somebody like the Teller, man, somebody that used to train MMA, man, I got into it, right around when I was 21 as far as like formally training, but somebody that's, was always hitting the bag and doing self-boxing training. My dad used to be an amateur boxer, stuff like that. I've always been in the fight game, but when I was younger, man, I really gravitated towards it, just out of my aggression, being a young guy, the trials, that you go through, man, going through life, having tough times in your life. I know a lot of you guys know what I'm talking about, man. Just tough times in your life that make you gravitate towards fighting. Maybe, you've been through some crazy stuff, man, and some guy bumps you or something outside, and some type of situation you've been in, whatever whatever it was. But I know a lot of you guys have crazy stories, and I know a lot of these fighters have crazy stories, and I want to hear about them. And I want to hear what was some of the reasons why some of these fighters gravitated towards fighting. Are these just the types of guys that were just into sports and they liked being disciplined and they got into fighting? Or I want to find out about some of the guys that gravitated towards fighting because they were just an aggressive, crazy, mother effer, some wild ass dude. I want to hear all about those stories, and that's the type of stuff I'm going to be giving to you guys. So that's what I want you guys to be prepared for, and that's all about I could say about that. The other thing I want to talk about a little bit more is the live interactive videos that I'm going to be putting out. I really think you guys are going to like that stuff, man. I'm going to have the link right in the chat. You guys hop in, and we'll have all types of entertaining conversations and whatnot. We'll keep it spicy. I promise you guys that. And that will be once a week. So I'm going to do it this Saturday, this upcoming Saturday. Like I said, mark it on your calendar. But eventually moving down the line, what I'll do is I'll have a set day. I haven't confirmed if it's going to be Thursday or Friday. It's going to be one of those 2 days, and it'll probably be around 8, 9 o'clock. If you guys have any recommendations, comment below when you guys think it's a good time for you guys, that you guys are available to hop on the live chat and engage with me, and we'll figure a formal time, and then from there, it's just going to be weekly. It's going to be every week. There's going to be fight cards being put out every weekend almost. How the UFC is, even when we get back to normal. They're almost every weekend now, so we'll always have something to talk about. And so, yeah, I want to do, an interactive type of video. And it'll probably be Thursday, maybe Thursday 8 o'clock, Thursday 9 o'clock, or Friday 8 o'clock, Friday 9 o'clock. If you guys think it should be later or earlier, let me know, comment below. And other than that, stay tuned. I told you guys the show will continue to evolve. The Teller will continue to move through the ranks. You're going to see bigger and better things from the Teller over here. And eventually down the line, hopefully you'll see me working with the UFC. I know a lot of you guys doubted me when I told you guys that in the beginning. And some of you, I'm sure, still doubt me now, but stay tuned. This is nothing. This is just the inaugural episode of the Teller Talks. As you guys see the new logo, tell me if you like that as well. And, on that note, I guess we'll sign out. Signing out, the Teller.
The MMA Fortune Teller.
The Teller. The Teller. The Teller. The Teller.